Welcome to our channel Scary Sagas, where we bring you the most amazing true horror stories. Allow me to recount the spine-chilling chronicles of my year-long stay in a haunted house during my freshman year of high school. As a senior now, I reflect on those harrowing experiences that unfolded while I resided alone in that eerie dwelling. Family complications had led my parents to distance themselves from me, leaving me in the care of a close friend who graciously provided us with this house, conveniently located right next door. Within the confines of that abode, numerous inexplicable incidents occurred, but I shall share with you two stories that left an indelible mark on my soul. It is crucial to note that every detail holds significance in the tapestry of this haunted narrative. Initially, I was meant to share the house with my eldest brother, yet he harbored an inexplicable aversion to his own room. Despite storing his belongings there, he preferred to sleep on the couch in our previous residence. On the other hand, my room was situated at the far end of the hallway, directly in one's line of sight when peering down the corridor. Unlike my brother's room, which was located to the side, mine held a different position of prominence: master bedroom. Adjacent to his room stood my bathroom, a source of immense discomfort for me. The layout of the hallway itself was of utmost importance. The entire house exuded a heavy, ominous atmosphere, yet my room stood as an oasis of safety. Everyone who stepped foot inside could sense its palpable shift in temperature and ambience as one transitioned from the hallway into my sanctum. It was akin to a stark juxtaposition between heaven and hell. Now, a little background on the house itself. A dear friend and neighbor had tragically passed away a few months prior to my arrival. Though he had not met his demise within those haunted walls, both of his wives had perished there. Their final moments had unfolded in my brother's room. However, knowing them personally, I harbored the belief that they would never seek to frighten either myself or my brother. Moreover, being situated in a neighborhood where all the houses were over half a century old, it was plausible to assume the presence of other spirits, especially given our close proximity to 3 cemeteries. Returning to the chilling events, I found myself alone one evening, idling in my room. The clock struck 10 p.m., and hunger gnawed at my stomach. Determined to satiate my appetite, I decided to make a quick trip to the neighboring house for a snack. Stepping out of my room, I noticed my brother's door ajar, with the light still illuminating the space. Assuming he had returned and neglected to turn off the lights, I switched them off and closed the door, leaving the hallway light on. Satisfied with my deed, I ventured to the other house, indulging in a brief respite. Around 11 p.m., as I prepared to re-enter the hallway, a disconcerting sight unfolded before my eyes. My brother's door stood wide open, the room engulfed in darkness. To reach my own room, I had no choice but to pass his. Reluctant to investigate, I gathered my courage, took a deep breath, and sprinted down the hallway. Hastily shutting his door, I lunged into my sanctuary, slamming it shut and hastily locking it. Overwhelmed, I collapsed onto my bed and dialed my brother's number. Trembling, I inquired, "Hey, have you been home in the past few hours?" To my horror, his response sent shivers down my spine. "What? No, I've been at work, pulling overtime. I'm just about to leave." "Why? Did something happen in my room?" Uttering a feeble "Yeah, your room," I was interrupted as he declared, "Looks like I won't be returning tonight." Left abandoned, I contemplated my next move, but before I could reach a decision, The sound of his door creaking open reverberated through the house. The aging doors emitted eerie sounds even with the slightest touch of the doorknob. I was petrified, yet the thought of venturing out to investigate seemed inconceivable. Then came the chilling click of the light switch, sealing my fate. It was just me, alone in that haunted house. Hours drifted by, and as fate would have it, the most dreaded scenario unfolded, a dire predicament for anyone dwelling alone in a haunted abode. Nature's call compelled me to visit the bathroom, despite the late hour. My chronic insomnia made it impossible to ignore. An internal struggle ensued. I didn't want to venture out of my room, my sanctuary. However, I gathered my resolve, mustered my courage, and made a run for the bathroom situated across from my brother's room. In passing, I caught a glimpse of his door, slightly ajar, despite my previous efforts to close it, and the lights were inexplicably switched off. Suppressing my unease, I pressed forward, entering the bathroom with haste. I completed my tasks using the bathroom, brushing my teeth, and as I stood before the door, fear gripped me. Reluctant to open it, I hesitated. It was at that moment, as my hand reached for the doorknob, that I heard a deafening slam sound of my brother's door violently colliding with the wall. I wanted to weep. Utter terror consumed me as I sprinted back to my haven, slammed his door shut, and collapsed onto the floor. As I lay there, a chilling occurrence transpired. Sound of knocking resonated from behind my brother's door. I dared not leave my room for the remainder of that fateful night. But allow me to share one final horrifying encounter, a nightmare that etched itself into my psyche. This house became the genesis of my night terrors. And while my best friend was absent from my waking hours, the demon lady I mentioned earlier had yet to manifest within my dreams until that fateful night, a few months before my scheduled departure. Finally succumbing to exhaustion, I drifted into slumber. Within the realm of dreams, I found myself lying on my bed, supine, my room shrouded in darkness. I remained oblivious to the fact that I was caught in the clutches of sleep paralysis. Unable to move or scream, I became acutely aware of a heavy pressure weighing down upon my chest. It was the familiar sensation of sleep paralysis. And then I saw her lady herself, perched atop my chest. She seized the green pillow that I had casually moved aside before drifting off, and commenced choking me with it. Her maniacal laughter pierced the air as she pressed the pillow against my face. Desperately, I struggled to free myself, thrashing my arms in a futile attempt to rip the pillow away. Yet my efforts proved fruitless. Suffocating, unable to scream or draw breath, I heard her ominous words pierce the darkness. "You are mine now." Abruptly, I jolted awake, drenched in sweat, gasping for air. The blood drained from my face as I grappled to regain composure. A shocking realization washed over me. The green pillow that I had unequivocally moved aside before succumbing to slumber now lay upon my chest. Upon leaving that haunted house, I sought answers from my brother, desperate to uncover the source of his aversion to his room. What I learned shook me to my core. He divulged that his room had been adorned with 2 porcelain dolls upon our arrival. In a feeble attempt to rid himself of their unsettling presence, he banished them to the patio. Yet, mere days later, he discovered one doll perched atop a brownish-red dresser, and the other tucked away inside a drawer he had never used. The dolls seemed to possess a life of their own, relocating throughout the house, occasionally returning to his room. Moreover, he recounted the overwhelming sensation of being watched by countless unseen eyes. It was this perpetual sense of surveillance that compelled him to abandon his room. He envied me, for my sanctum exuded an aura of safety and tranquility. What troubled me most was the revelation that, upon vacating that house and returning to our family's original residence, the haunting ambience dissipated along with me. Regrettably, I soon discovered that I had unwittingly brought something back, a haunting presence that continues to haunt me to this day, plaguing my dreams with visions of that malevolent lady. When I was younger, I lived in a quaint cul-de-sac neighborhood that held an eerie secret, infamous house that would forever haunt my memories. The passage of time has dulled my recollection, and I'm uncertain if the house still stands today. It's been a decade since I last set foot in that neighborhood, making me a mere 9 or 10 years old at the time. During my childhood, I frequently found myself drawn to that house, accompanied by a group of adventurous friends. For this tale, let's call them Jason, Andrew, Corey, and Steven. We possessed an insatiable curiosity about the house's interior and would often attempt to gain entry. The stories our parents told us only fueled our determination. According to them, a cantankerous man who despised the presence of children once resided in that house, tragically meeting his end on its porch due to a heart attack. We were skeptical, dismissing their warnings as mere attempts to spook us and keep us away from our forbidden destination. Before hearing the tales, we had already made several unsuccessful attempts to breach the house, rally around 10 to 15 times. The doors were always locked, frustrating our endeavors. Despite our failed attempts, we managed to successfully enter the house on 3 separate occasions before an unsettling incident occurred. The first time we gained entry, we resorted to kicking in the back door, which then became our gateway for subsequent visits until it was mysteriously repaired. On the last occasion, we resorted to squeezing through a broken window. This time, however, the house emanated a more ominous aura compared to our previous ventures. The once tidy interior was now strewn with papers, littering the floor like confetti, and a pungent skunk-like odor permeated the air. During our second visit, we brought along a table and a couple of chairs to provide seating and a surface for our refreshments. However, upon returning to the area where we had set up the table and chairs, we were astounded to find them missing. In their place lay scattered newspapers and unaddressed letters. Intrigued, we opened a few of the letters and were taken aback to discover playing cards tucked inside cards used for games like spades, go fish, euchre, and more. A sense of bewilderment settled upon us as we sifted through the enigmatic correspondence. In a moment of curiosity, I picked up a newspaper and noticed the date June 21st, 1986. Before we could make sense of the situation, a sudden commotion erupted from the upstairs bedrooms. A man's angry shouts pierced the air, accompanied by the haunting sound of approaching footsteps. Fear seized our hearts as Jason, Corey, Steven, and Drew, and I instinctively sprinted towards the window we had entered through. Without hesitation, we leaped out and fled, casting fearful glances backward. To our horror, we beheld the enraged visage of a man peering at us from the upstairs window. We sought solace and answers in the safety of my home. Yet our young minds were unable to comprehend the inexplicable events we had just experienced. From that day forward, whenever we journeyed together, we purposefully took a route that passed by the house always on the opposite side of the road, casting curious gazes toward the dwelling. Curiously, we never witnessed anything out of the ordinary during those subsequent encounters. Eventually, we mustered the courage to share our harrowing tale with our parents. Their reaction was not one of anger, but rather profound concern. It seemed they were more fearful for our well-being than upset about our trespassing escapades. You see, the date mentioned in the newspaper we discovered coincided with the day our parents, as children themselves, had ventured onto the man's property, prompting him to chase and scold them. The revelation left us chilled to the bone. I confided in my father about the incident, and the question he posed regarding the man's appearance hung heavy in the air. I described him as a Caucasian man weighing around 140 pounds, with dark brown hair and brown eyes, and standing approximately 5 feet 9 inches tall. Although my father remained silent, his expression conveyed a silent realization suspected I had encountered the very spirit of the man who had passed away within that house. A few weeks later, we collectively decided to venture in the opposite direction, making our way to a convenience store called Circle K. This path took us far away from the haunting house. Our route necessitated crossing past a cluster of towering pine trees, a bustling highway, and an inexplicably fenced-in open field. The only feasible entry point into the enclosed field was a building that proved challenging to access, or a small hole we had cunningly carved into the fence, conveniently located near my residence. The dimensions of the fence resembled those found alongside highways, formidable and unyielding. As we reached the end closest to the building, we were astounded to discover the very table and chairs we had brought into the house during our ill-fated expedition. Perplexed, we observed an employee interrogating others about the origins of the furniture. Strangely, no one claimed responsibility for its presence, each denying any knowledge of its arrival, insisting it had materialized that very morning. In retrospect, we ruefully wished we had heeded our parents' admonitions to steer clear of the haunted house. Alas, it is an indelible trait of childhood to disregard such warnings at least once in a lifetime. My connection with Jason, Corey, Stephen, and Andrew endures to this day, and the incident remains etched in our collective memory. Regrettably, I never discovered the name of the man who had once occupied that house, or if I had indeed been in his presence, my mind now clouded with uncertainty. Let me take you on a spine-chilling journey that unfolded when I was a mere 6 years old. Even at that tender age, I harbored a deep fascination for all things paranormal. It was during this phase of my life that my parents and I relocated to a new house, nestled near our town's local college, an outwardly pleasant abode. Little did we know that the initial enchantment would soon give way to an eerie and foreboding presence. In close proximity to our new home stood an abandoned house, an ominous specter haunting the neighborhood. Strange figures would flit about near its premises, and inexplicable occurrences began plaguing both us and the house. My mother's health inexplicably deteriorated, while my father underwent a disconcerting transformation in demeanor. Objects would hurl themselves at us or unsuspecting guests, and even our beloved dog started displaying peculiar behavior. Still, it wasn't until that one fateful night that true terror took hold. As bedtime approached, my faithful canine companion, who had always slumbered by my side, suddenly refused to join me. Instead, he whimpered and barked relentlessly at my bedroom window, dismissing it as mere canine idiosyncrasy. I shrugged off the unease and succumbed to sleep. Yet, in the dead of night, around 3 a.m., I jolted awake, a searing pain seething within my chest. Hastily stumbling towards the bathroom, I discovered 3 ghastly scratch marks etched onto my tender skin. Panic coursed through me, and I attributed the marks to my pet cat, seeking solace in my assumption. Returning to my room, however, I was greeted by an apparition on eerie girl, approximately my age. Her eyes a haunting void of darkness, and her hands seemingly smeared with blood. She uttered no words, merely fixating her gaze upon me. In the blink of an eye, she vanished, leaving behind a lingering sense of dread. The unsettling encounter remained my secret, concealed from my unsuspecting parents. Little did I know, however, that this was only the beginning of an escalating nightmare. The catalyst for the escalation occurred during a day when I found myself alone at home, save for the presence of my uncle. He lounged in the backyard, enjoying a dip in our pool, while I occupied myself with toys in my room. Adjacent to my room was an upstairs area, its door slightly ajar. Inexplicably drawn to its mysterious allure, I cast my gaze upon the upper level, where a pair of crimson eyes pierced through the darkness, fixed intently upon me. A low, menacing voice resounded, uttering a chilling command. "Get out!" Despite the dread that seized my young heart, an inexplicable compulsion drove me to investigate the source of the eerie voice and eyes. I ascended the stairs, cautiously exploring the room above. Time seemed to stretch as I scoured the area, until an unseen force suddenly gripped my hair, yanking my head backward. In an instant, I was propelled downwards, cascading down the stairs, the full weight of an otherworldly entity bearing down upon me. Fear propelled me, urging me to flee the oppressive confines of that haunted room. Determined to share the horrors I had endured, I resolved to confide in my parents upon their return. Miraculously, they believed my account, and within a matter of weeks, we hastily departed from that house of nightmares. Now, as a 16-year-old, the harrowing memories still haunt me. Whenever circumstances lead me near the site of that accursed dwelling, my stomach churns, a nagging sense of unease clawing at my insides. The events of my childhood serve as a grim reminder that even within the facade of a seemingly idyllic home, malevolent forces can lurk, forever etching their mark upon one's psyche. They seem to like that these stories will leave you with more questions than answers. They are a reminder that sometimes the truth is much darker and more mysterious than we ever imagined. Join us next time on Scary Sagas for other spine-chilling true stories.